these guys. Try to get in as good a shape as they can.
Thank you. Welcome back. Recommendations are the following. First, take the second one. Senate Bill 1241. We're going to work with the Attorney General and the Health Transformation Czar Guru to get us some recommendations. The one thing I would point out is the good news is we already do have a fair amount of community input. George is not allowed to come to that meeting. Everyone should be involved. Kidding. Just to get some, we'll get the shape of what a possible collaboration is. But what I was trying to get at to Mr. Grandy's question was that the bodies that were referenced earlier already do mandate some consumer input. So there is already that process.
And with all of the ad hoc working groups we've had over the summer, they've all had consumers in them.
And we'll still reconcile differences of opinion in Judiciary Committee. I mean, when we find out whether we're actually flying in the face of antitrust premises. Okay. So, and then on 667.
Okay, so we're going to
reconvene at 1:15 p.m. on February 13th.
In this conference.
In this conference room 229 for decision making.
But we would like something ahead of time on the 12th or the 11th, or as soon as you guys can get something to us.
Right. And then Senate Bill 667. We may come back for decision making on this matter, but there do seem to be significant outstanding questions. We probably are going to recommend at the least a resolution asking the Board of Pharmacy to make us formal recommendations before the next session at the latest, 20 days before the next session, because there are some outstanding discrepancies of opinion, actually. There is some regulation, but the auditing power and some of the other services don't seem to actually be taken care of to the point that we'd like. It's come back 3 sessions in a row, I think. So we'd like to get some formal recommendations. And we do recognize the insurance commissioner's concerns about whether that's the proper place and time. Okay, so, but we'll come back for both those measures, and we'll probably be making a final recommendation on 667 then too. Okay, so that adjourns this hearing. Then we're going to take 5 minutes, and then we'll come to our final agenda. Welcome back, everyone. So, thank you for being patient today. We do greatly appreciate it. I might be able to save some of the community a little bit of time today. We have several bills for the Health Committee. This is just the Health Committee alone now. We have several measures in this last agenda for the afternoon. The first of which, however, is Senate Bill 646, and that was another measure to establish, in this case, a tax on sugar-sweetened beverages, syrup, and powder, with the revenues going to community health centers and a trauma system special fund. For those who are interested in soda fees or taxes, after consulting with my fellow chairs and members, we will be pursuing decision-making on the first measure of the day. We'll defer to the governor's package bill, which is Senate Bill 1085, and there will not be a vote on the premise is there won't be a vote on Senate Bill 646. That we've had the debate, and it's been a thorough and good one, on Senate Bill 1085. The only caveat to that is we may very well, when we return to the governor's or the administration bill, we may recommend that some resources are used for direct health care services, as were mentioned in that case, community health centers, for preventive services regarding childhood obesity. But we don't tend to take up this measure, so if one came to oppose or support it, they don't have to be concerned that that measure will become law. Okay? So therefore, you're free to testify again on Senate Bill 646, but the inclination will be to go with Senate Bill 1085 on Monday, February 11th. Okay. In that case, I'm going to read this list of people. If anyone desires to still testify on this measure, I'll ask you afterwards. Don Couch, opposition. Nancy Redfeather, in support. Lauren Zerbel, in opposition. ILW, in opposition. Robert Witt, support. David Peters, comments. Michael Norbriga, opposition. Appleseed Center for Law and Economic Justice, in support. Kent Kurihara, opposition. Wendy Chuck, opposition. Lane Muraoka, in opposition. Bev Brody, in support. Brett Akimoto, in opposition. Chris Mullins, in support. Eugene Yamashiro, in opposition. Jamie Harada, in opposition. Javier Mendez Alvarez, in support. Jay Maddock, in support. Mark Kubota, opposition. Natalie Iwasa, in opposition, and William Hughes, in opposition. Is there anyone else here that wants to make mention or testify on this measure?
HPCA submitted testimony in support.
Yes, thank you. And again, I'd reiterate that it's the chair's intention that if Senate Bill 1085 does move, that there be some revenues that go to primary care, potentially community health centers, very likely. Okay. Yes.
Would that not be? Would that be an option through the RFP process that's being suggested in the other bill?
It would be. Yes. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
And guarantees that it will be used effectively.
Yes. Very good point. Thank you, Tom. Okay. Anyone else on this measure? Okay. We're going to move then to Senate Bill 642. People need to go. We understand. Senate Bill 642 relating to health. This requires that cigarettes and tobacco products be stored behind the counter. Director Fuddy or a representative?
I need to leave for another meeting, so we'll well, thank you, Senator.
Forgive me, Senator.
Sure.
Okay. Senate Bill 642. The department appreciates the intent of this measure, which is consistent with the Family Smoking Prevention Tobacco Control Act of 2009. And we see that the possible cost would go to community and retailer education. So we thank you very much for the measure and are available if you have any questions.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lola. David Louie, Attorney General's Office.
Good afternoon, Chair Green, members of the committee. My name is Blair Goto. The Department of the Attorney General opposes this measure on practical grounds. Basically, our concern is that by requiring cigarette and tobacco products that are being held for sale to be stored behind the counter, accessible only to personnel of the business, that will basically unintentionally facilitate the sale of untaxed and contraband cigarettes. So we are here for questions if there.
Thank you. Corey Chun, Cancer Society. Support. Oh, since he's here, thank you. Jessica Yamauchi.
Thank you. Jessica Yamauchi with the Coalition for Tobacco-Free Hawaii. We are strongly in support of this measure and feel that other tobacco products should be treated similarly to cigarettes and be kept behind the counter where accessible only by an employee.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Nicole Sutton. In support, Deanna Cackley. Support, Grady Sullivan. Support, Javier Mendez Alvarez. In support, Carrie Lee, Eric or Aries. In support, Shay Sabol. In support, the following people are all from Rio. We're in support, Ms. Felicita, Ms. Morris, Ms. Chan, Ms. Raposa, Michael Brooks, Ms. Magdrelia, Ms. Johnson, Ms. Navalta. Others interested in testifying in this measure?
Michael Sanger, opposition.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else interested in this measure? Attorney General, I apologize. Quick question. Blair? I guess I didn't understand. I didn't understand exactly what was meant by it would incent or cause more potential contraband sale.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Green and members of the committee. My name is Earl Hook. I'm also Deputy Attorney General of the office. I'm head of the Tobacco Enforcement Unit. Way back when we started the tax stamping program, there was rampant double inventories. You would have situations where you would have fully stamped product in the overhead racks, and they would be dealing unstamped cartons from the back. You would have, at that point in time, we had gray market product that was being pushed out from the back. So we finally got the retailers, as far as the cigarettes go, to have everything up front so that when we go in, we're able to monitor what's happening, and it does not provide a legal option for them to circumvent our regulatory structure that took 12 some odd years to put in place. And that's what we see as the problem with this bill. You would tell them, oh, it's a good thing and we're making the law, but you need to put this stuff as far away from scrutiny as possible, which lends them the full opportunity to double inventory or do whatever the heck they'd like to. Recently, we came across a situation where there were tons and tons of cigarettes for sale, and they were all stamped, and they insisted that they got them from a local distributor. Lo and behold, there was California tax stamps commingled, California tax stamp product commingled with the Hawaii stamp product, and there was gray market or cigarettes that were brought in from overseas commingled. So that's one scenario where they're hiding the contraband in plain sight. But this other legislated, the way this thing is being brought out in the legislature would mandate them to stick it in the back and do pretty much whatever they like with it.
Do they really have the capacity to do whatever they like with it if they're in violation of the law? Right?
But we don't have as clear access to the product.
You mean you have to stop them in their day, go behind the counter? So in this case, we're talking about the conflict between our desire to make it more difficult, I suppose, for young people to buy cigarettes versus the capacity for the department to do inspections.
Right. And the question is, you currently have laws on the books that deal with sales to minors.
Right.
And they have programs where the police, I understand, go out and do stings on that issue.
Okay.
We had a tremendous amount of lost revenue before we had the stamping program. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it had to do with the contraband. And a lot of it, again, going back to having dual inventories. Mm-hmm. This would based upon my experience, legalize having double inventories. That would be even more difficult for us to keep track of. And we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Senate Bill 1127, relating to electronic smoking devices, selling electronic smoking devices to persons under age 18. We have Department of Health first. Okay, we had it's extensive testimony in both support and opposition. How many people are here to testify on this measure in person?
Hello, I'm Corey Smith. I'm the owner and operator of Volcano Fine Electronic Cigarettes here in the state of Hawaii. We stand in, we approve of this measure, and I'd like to commend the people who actually wrote the bill. They did a very good job of creating a subset of products. They did not lump electronic smoking devices into a category of tobacco products, which we'll be going over on 652. So I just want to commend the drafters of the bill on doing a good job of separating those two. And of course, as a company, we've already adopted policies not to sell our products to minors, and so we stand in approval of this.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone in opposition to this measure? Here, it says.
Michael Zener in opposition.
Michael, do you mind telling me what your opposition is? Just in a minute or two.
My opposition, I fail to see why there's a need for that, since there hasn't been any harm that's been conclusively proven with the electronic cigarette. They say they don't know if it's harmful or not. Where's the proof? Where's the evidence? Which chemical?
Actually, I'm going to have you come up here. Just
okay.
Yes, sir. Okay. I guess just very briefly, so I think the premise was that there's nicotine involved. Is that right?
Not always.
Not always. But for those cigarettes that do have nicotine involved, I'm sorry, those electronic smoking devices that have nicotine involved.
Yes.
Would you oppose them being sold to underage 18 or?
I would discourage it, but I don't know that there needs to be a law. As opposed to someone of that age maybe wanting to use full tobacco products.
Okay. I just wanted clarification. I'm sorry to bring you up.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed.
Anyone else wishing to testify on the measure, please?
Thank you. Jessica Yamuchi with the Coalition for Tobacco-Free Hawaii. We stand in strong support of this measure as well, and would just like to ask the committee to consider also adding prohibiting sampling. Currently, you can sample these products at kiosks and at the mall and things. So we would like to consider adding that to the bill.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
assume that might change your testimony in support of the measure.
That doesn't change our testimony. Do you want me to?
You can come up, yeah.
That does not change our position. We do allow sampling to people who are over 18 years old. We have no problem not selling these products to minors. They're not marketed to minors. They're not meant for minors. So we still stand in support.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify on this matter? Okay, and we will enter into the record. In fact, it's already formally part of the record, those who both support and oppose this measure. Okay. Senate Bill 1307, amending the tax on tobacco products by an unspecified amount. Director of Health?
Thank you very much. Senator Chen Oakland and Senator Green. We appreciate the intent of Senate Bill 1307. We're going to defer to the Department of Taxation on those matters relating to taxation and revenue generation. So we do recognize that these products are contributing and increasing in use, and so thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Dough tax, do we have? Let me just race through this. Corey Chung?
Hey, Senator Green.
How are you?
Senator Chen Oakland. Hi, Corey Chun, American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. We're in support of this measure, even though it's unspecified right now, and we just recommend the purpose of this measure is for tax parity, raising that to 102%.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Corey. It's just for people's understanding that the premise would be to increase the tax on tobacco, so that people don't think I'm recommending decreasing the tax on tobacco. Jake Kim was in opposition. Randy O in opposition. Dough tax. Do we have anyone here? Volcano, you want to come?
So I just wanted to clarify again on the previous bill.
It's okay, we'll come back to it. Okay, no problem.
Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? 1307. This is a proposal for a tax increase on cigarettes. Come on.
Hope you got my testimony in time. The Hawaii Smokers Alliance is again opposed to regressive tax increases upon constituents that smoke. This disproportionately falls upon working class and poor constituents. Health departments and CDC's own demographics have shown this. Any tax increase only continues to foster black market sales and products. Any increase makes it more prevalent. It certainly does exist in Hawaii. Also, I would like to remind that people who smoke, contrary to what is put out by my testimony from the Netherlands Ministry of Health study, which looked at overall total health care costs for smokers, found that actually people who smoke saved money in the long run. So one of the justifications that the opposition always claims, this study, if it takes into consideration the whole life, actually people that are obese and who smoke actually save on lifetime health care costs.
Is that from early death, Michael, or what was that from?
Yeah.
They're not on the system as long.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, appreciate it. It's more delicate. Okay, appreciate it. Anyone else interested in testifying in this measure?
The coalition submitted late testimony in support.
Okay, thank you. All right. Questions? Chair? No. Okay. Let's move to Senate Bill 652, requiring cigarettes and tobacco products to be stored for sale behind the counter. Requires advertisements that promote and encourage the purchase or use of cigarettes or tobacco products to be placed at least 25 feet away from children's products. Requires advertisements that promote or encourage the purchase or use of cigarettes or tobacco products to be placed 4 feet off of the floor. Permit exceptions for retail stores and bars, establishments where the minimum age for admission is 18. And this bill does have a controversial, I understand, clause including electronic cigarettes under the definition of tobacco products. First, the Attorney General.
Good afternoon, Chair Green, Senator Chen Oakland. My name is Blair Goto with the Attorney General's office. The Department of the Attorney General does oppose this measure for both legal and practical reasons. I think the practical reasons, again, refer to the part about storing cigarettes and tobacco products behind the counter, which Mr. Hoke explained in a little bit greater detail. As far as the parts about banning advertising within 25 feet of children's products or toys, or within 25 feet of where cookies, candy, ice cream, etc., those types of things are sold, as well as requiring that advertisements that promote or encourage purchase of cigarettes or tobacco products be it displayed at least 4 feet above the floor. There is a United States Supreme Court case that dealt with restrictions very similar to this that was passed, that were passed by the state of Massachusetts, and basically the U.S. Supreme Court found that the restrictions, at least with respect to cigarettes, would be preempted by the federal Cigarette Labeling and Advertising Act, and that as to other tobacco products, the non-cigarette products, that the restrictions on the advertising of those products would violate the First Amendment. And so for those reasons, the Department of the Attorney General is opposed to this measure. We do not take a position as to the part about adding e-cigarettes to the definition of tobacco as far as sales to minors.
Well, I've got you, Blair. Just a quick question about the First Amendment matter. It's my understanding that there are some provisions that prevent advertising to minors, advertising tobacco to minors. Is that not correct? Right now,
I think that's correct.
So if that's already the case, I'm confused as to why this would be a new violation of this piece of the bill would be a violation of people's First Amendment rights. If there's already precedent that you can't advertise cigarettes to kids.
I guess it would have to depend upon the type of restriction for the kids. I'd have to look at that more closely, but I think at least as far as the advertising ban that was considered by the U.S. Supreme Court, they set out a four-part test and require that any regulation that is to restrict basically commercial speech meet those requirements. And I think as far as the types of restrictions that we see in this bill, it comes down to a matter of tailoring those kinds of restrictions appropriately because they are not content neutral. So it's not like if you had a general ban on advertising all products within 25 feet of children's products or toys. So,
however, you can't advertise cigarettes on TV. You can't advertise people drinking on TV. You can't. So there are these restrictions that are already out there. So might we not encourage the Supreme Court to deal with Hawaii's left-wing thoughts on tobacco?
Well, I guess those types of restrictions generally, I believe, are nationwide, and so that is something that Congress has done, or the federal government, and not to say that they aren't prevented by the First Amendment from doing things, but the analysis is slightly different in that kind of circumstance, as I understand.
All right, we'll give them a go. Thank you, though. Okay, I appreciate it. Lauren Zerbel?
I'm just stand on our testimony.
Okay. Gentlemen? You're speaking for about 800 people now, because I know you sent that email. You're speaking for a lot of people, because I think they sent testimony in, so help me to understand.
Yes.
Okay.
I hope you don't mind that I'm going to actually read because it helps me keep my ideas together.
Don't worry.
So as I mentioned, my name is Corey Smith. I'm the owner of Volcano Final Electronic Cigarettes. We're the largest manufacturer and retailer of electronic cigarettes here in the state of Hawaii. We have over 8 locations, 70 full-time employees. First of all, I would like to commend the drafters of Senate Bill 652 for attempting to further limit marketing avenues and retail access to tobacco cigarettes that are known to cause each year an estimated 443,000 people to die, about 8.6 million people to live with serious illness caused by smoking. The purpose of it's clearly stated within the justification of the bill, stating the purpose of this act is to reduce the number of minors and youth who smoke through the restriction and of placement of tobacco sales and advertising. So I'd ask that you pay close attention to the words smoking and tobacco in the aforementioned facts, figures, and the bill's justification as well, because there's a distinct difference between smoking through the use of a traditional tobacco cigarette that are either comprised of or contain tobacco, and that of vaping or the use of an electronic cigarette. We're fully aware that the fact that our name electronic cigarette contains the word cigarette, and that's what creates a lot of the confusion regarding the product. We've tried to do a lot of things as an industry to rectify that moniker, and I'll try to explain a lot of the differences to you here as well. First of all, electronic cigarettes are not comprised of tobacco. They don't contain any tobacco they're not made of them, they don't contain tobacco at all. Thus, the major issue with Senate Bill 652. The bill clearly states in plain verbiage, tobacco and tobacco products include electronic cigarettes. How does one propose to label an electronic cigarette a tobacco product if the product doesn't contain any tobacco? Electronic cigarettes do not produce first-hand, second-hand, third-hand, or any smoke for that matter. Thus, the justification of the bill, which I recited earlier, to reduce the number of children and teens in Hawaii who smoke will not be achieved by adding electronic cigarettes to the definition of tobacco or tobacco products. The bill skews the definition of electronic cigarettes with loosely worded verbiage that produces many unintended consequences and merely tries to impose restrictions on a product that is vastly different from any other product that falls within the bounds of tobacco and tobacco products.
Corey, let's riff for a second. So what's the, basically the vapor delivers nicotine, just so I understand, or?
It can or it can't. It depends on whether or not the purchaser decides to choose a liquid that contains nicotine.
What are the other liquids?
There's 4 main ingredients. There's propylene glycol, there's vegetable glycerin, artificial or natural flavorings, and nicotine in the strength of their choosing.
Okay. how many people? I'll let you get back to the script. Don't worry. This is we're not. It's now mellow now that we don't have some other people around. Okay, so not to worry. In general, how many people choose nicotine? Is there a way to say from a standard? You know, do you guys assess? Do most people choose nicotine? Do most people not?
That's a very hard thing to measure because, I'll be blunt and honest in saying that a lot of people are using our products to either wean themselves off of nicotine addiction, so they might start with a higher level of nicotine and work themselves down to zero. Some people start with zero right away because that's what they're trying to do is just get off on nicotine or to help break their nicotine addiction or give them more control over the amount of nicotine that they are ingesting on an everyday basis.
Good. So what are they doing it for? Not for the vegetable oil? What's the... I think for habit or... I can speak for my own personal experience. I switched to vaping, obviously, because I didn't like the smells, I didn't like the coughs, I didn't like all of the restrictions that are already placed on tobacco. I didn't want to have to deal with any of that stuff. But, in all honesty, I didn't want to be a smoker. So my personal... vaping experiences. I continue to vape, but I vape a lot less than I ever did smoke, and I don't smoke. So okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so thank you. Electronic cigarettes are battery-powered devices that are sold with many common electronic components that can be found in cameras, remote control cars, airplanes, and a plethora of other consumer electronic devices. The bill's definition of electronic cigarettes clearly states such common electrical components as batteries, electronic circuits, mechanical heating elements, or any other component or related device that is used to deliver vapor. Please note the word vapor. So are we to believe that the removable rechargeable lithium-ion battery, which powers this electronic cigarette, because it is a related component or device, now this is a tobacco product? Is this leather carrying case, which is sold with it, is this a tobacco product? Is this strap that's used as a hand strap, is that a tobacco product?
We can make them out of hemp, though, and we could kill two birds with one stone.
But I think it's pretty obvious that the loose verbiage and the loose wording of the bill doesn't make a distinction between the two, and then you have this very large disconnect. But from my standpoint, how do you then enforce that, right? There's too much in between. Okay. So let's look back again in the terms or in the explanation that is used to deliver vapor. I think it's safe to say that the delivery of vapor is vastly different than smoking. In fact, the concise definition of smoking is the gaseous products of burning carbonaceous materials made visible by the presence of small particles of carbon. On the other hand, water vapor containing traces of particulate matter, such as water evaporating from a tea kettle, that's not understood to be smoke, and I don't think anybody in this room would ever say that that's smoking.
So let me get you to wrap up. I'm going to ask you some questions, okay, afterwards.
Okay. So absent of any of these facts of separating electronic cigarettes from tobacco and tobacco products, we obviously have a few issues with the specific revisions to each of the chapters. 25 feet from children's products or toys, i.e. cookies, candy, ice cream, gums, or snacks. First of all, I was unaware that those are children's products because I purchase them as an adult every day. What exactly is a children's product? What exactly is a toy? If I open a store in a shopping mall and a Baskin & Robbins moves into the space next to me and they're within 25 feet, does that then void my lease and say that I can't sell my product, I have to leave? If the GameStop moves in next door and they're selling video games, does that is that a toy? I mean, you see, there's way too much broad definitions that create so many unintended consequences. So from our standpoint, we obviously stand vehemently opposed to this bill. I applaud the drafters of 1127. They did a great job of making sure that electronic cigarettes were not classified as tobacco products. And from a company standpoint, obviously, our biggest issue is the Senate keeps trying, or certain people keep trying to lump us into some broad category of products that then has regulation that's written for specific products. These products came along far after the FPSTCA. the Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act. The reason why there hasn't been any regulations that have come down from the FDA or anybody else is because guess what? That act wasn't written with electronic cigarettes in mind at all. None of the verbiage in that specific act has anything to do with electronic cigarettes, and that's why there has been a delay. And I feel like the state is jumping on board and trying to impose regulations on a product that shows so much promise. In fact, the American Association of Public Health Administrators said that the electronic cigarettes have the ability to save 4 to 8 million lives. Trying to place restrictions and put electronic cigarette retailers in the same marketing venues as tobacco cigarettes only then decreases people's options and their availability to get the information about these particular products. I urge the Senate and everybody else in this room to take a really good look at the product and figure out the science behind it, and instead of jumping to conclusions and trying to put a product into a subcategory that is built around tobacco, take a look at the product before you come to any other conclusions.
Right. Stick around. We'll have some questions, I'm sure.
Thanks.
Okay. So I did have, multiple testifiers, many, in fact, in opposition and some in support. Who else is here to testify today? Come on up for a second. What's your primary concern? Paula?
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. I'll turn in the late testimony. We appreciate the intent, and we will defer to the AGs in terms of the constitutional issue regarding it. And we do recognize that the Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act of 2009 prohibits self-service tobacco displays and restricts the placement of tobacco sales and advertising. This bill goes a little broader with the footage requirement, and that's where we will have to defer to the AGs in terms of the constitutional issue.
Okay. Got you. While I've got you, one concern I have is that, for instance, some states, this is not so central to the bill, but it's central to the premise. So that we're talking about whether or not there are health consequences from e-cigarettes, okay? So New York, I believe, has passed a restriction on smoking near schools. I think with 100 feet.
Smoking tobacco cigarettes?
No, using e-cigarettes. So they obviously are concerned about, the vapor or the nicotine from it, or what have you. Do you have a thought about that?
Sure, I got lots. There's lots of science already out there on the market. In fact, it's been proven that electronic cigarettes, the way that they deliver nicotine, is not nearly as advanced or as well as a regular cigarette. A cigarette, you absorb almost 10 times the amount of nicotine in one puff than you would from an electronic cigarette. Usually one puff, you get about 1 milligrams worth of nicotine from a cigarette. A standard electronic cigarette, you get about 1/10 of a milligram. Not only that, it takes a lot longer for it to then absorb into the system, and the amount of nicotine that is then exhaled is basically a trace amount, which means it's barely measurable. There's been an IVAC study which actually did study the indoor air quality in regards to the use of electronic cigarettes. There's been that study in particular found that there is no harmful harm to any of the other persons within a 40 square meter room. I get you. So I hear you.
Okay, so I need to read some of these reports. No question. One.
Happy to first.
That I believe. One concern I have is that, without putting too fine a point on it, is that e-cigarettes do attract the interest of young people.
Where's the evidence? If somebody showed me the evidence on that, I would maybe hear their argument, but that's anecdotal. I mean, is there any scientific study that says electronic cigarettes are attractive to children? The electronic cigarette, the price point on it is $100. That's hardly attractive to many adults.
That wasn't a question. So my concern is that it is attractive to children, and that's why people are selling them in the mall. And it's one of many places, but there are concerns. So we're going to take this bill up and think carefully about it. I recognize some of the other concerns about helping people get off traditional cigarettes. That's good. There's no question. Michael? Sure.
Thank you. I am opposed to this bill for the same constitutional reasons that have been brought up in last year. Also, I find it really interesting when electronic cigarettes first came out, we were watching what response that the anti-smoking lobby would have to it. And at first, what we saw was kind of a mixed views. They didn't really know how to deal with it. But then they went totally against it, where they're going to treat it just like regular tobacco. So we try and look into that and why. And what is interesting, what we found is groups like Tobacco Free Hawaii, their major donor, other than the settlement agreement, now correct me if I'm wrong, is Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. Substantial grants, if not repeated ones. And they have that on their own website where they've got money for them. Robert Wood Johnson Foundation is connected with Johnson & Johnson. They make many of the quit smoking nicotine products, the gum, the patches, I believe Trantrex, and some others. So when electronic cigarettes came along, which, as the gentleman mentioned, is what some people are using to quit, they enjoy them a little more, trying to quit with them, they directly cut into Johnson & Johnson's market. So I can't help but think that there's a correlation there following the money.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else to testify? Please, AG. You have the same concerns?
No, Chair, just a clarification on your earlier question about limiting or preventing advertising to youth.
Yes.
I think the distinction there is that cigarette sales to adults are a legal activity of a legal sale of a legal product, but in almost all states, I think it is illegal to sell cigarettes to minors. Hence, there is higher justification for restricting advertising that reaches minors. So, just a clarification on that point.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Chair, any questions? Okay. Thank you. That's it for that one. We got time. All right. So, next bill, Senate Bill 492. This is Lola, you had additional testimony?
I was just going to provide some comment in terms of the discussion at hand, but if you'd moved on.
Yes. Ship is set.
The ship is set.
Okay. Senate Bill 492 relating to tobacco products imposing an excise tax equal to $3.20 per net ounce of tobacco for each article or item of tobacco products other than large cigars sold by the wholesaler or dealer on and after January 1, 2014. First, the Tax Bill Service. Submitting comments, American Cancer Society.
Hey, Senators. Corey Chun again, American Cancer Society, Cancer Action Network. We're in support of this measure. We just we actually had some recommendations for it. Right now it's $3. The proposed measure is to tax it at $3.20 per net ounce. But in my testimony, I just want to point out that when it comes to roll your owns, there actually might be a tax reduction based on, I guess the general assumption is that a pack of roll your own is based on a 1 ounce, but it's actually estimated more of 0.65 ounces. So that's why my recommendation and my testimony. So, if you have any questions?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. William Gu? Angela Atkins? Support. Debbie Odo in support. Deanna Cackley in support. Michelle Brooks and Francis Wong in support. Javier Mendez Alvarez and Mark Levin in support. Matt Okahata and Chrissy Kawamoto in support. Dee Lee in opposition. Department of Health, did I call you?
Thank you, Senator. Kind of like American Cancer Society, our position is not as straightforward. We appreciate the intent of it, but in hearing from Department of Taxation, we're going to defer to them. But we understand that on the matters of the taxation and then the revenue that would be collected, that this may actually, the language in here may actually result in less taxes collected. So we'll defer to them on the mechanics of that. But
it's interesting because they helped write that bill.
Cheapskates.
So I'm going to go sit down, Senator, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you.
Michael Zenner? Now that you know this is a tax decrease on...
I assume it's a decrease, not a decrease. I would hope for decrease.
It's not a decrease. Don't hope for that.
The Hawaii Smokers Alliance naturally is opposed to this due to its regressive nature, the black market enforceability issues, and pushing an agenda on people like myself who have no interest at all in quitting yet get punished anyways by this sort of legislation. So we stand in strong opposition.
Thank you. Ryan Oswald was in opposition. Who else can I ask? Is anyone else wishing to testify in this matter?
Thank you, Senator. Jessica Yamauchi with the Coalition for Tobacco-Free Hawaii. And similarly to DOH and ACS, we support this bill, but recognize that the language currently in it would actually reduce taxes. So we did get some language recommendation from Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, which we've shared with the Department of Taxation last week. And so I know that they were working on the House companion bill that did pass out with amendments yesterday, and hopefully that's gotten cleared up. The only other thing we'd like to ask is that a portion of the revenue be earmarked for tobacco prevention and control.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Gentleman in the back.
My name is William Beveridge with Let's Roll Hawaii. I oppose it.
Anyone else? Members, any questions? Okay. We're going to sort through some of those other questions. Senate Bill 970, prohibiting any minor under the age of 18 from possessing or smoking tobacco products. So just so people know, the purpose of this bill is to close a loophole that apparently we're finding that possession may actually not yet be prohibited, even though purchase is. Director of Health.
Thank you, Senator King, Senator Baker, Senator Susie Chandler Glenn. I'm Lola Irvin speaking on behalf of Director Fadi. On this measure, we share the legislators' concern over the need to reduce the prevalence of youth smoking. However, in terms of the science that is available and the evaluation available on prohibiting the possession of tobacco products by minors, we're respectfully opposing this measure, since the evaluation does not show nationally that such measures do result in reducing the use of tobacco products.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's befuddling.
It is.
Yeah. Robert Carroll in support. Judith Clark in opposition. Adam Lipka in support. Javier Mendez Alvarez in support. Ryan Oswald was in opposition. Anyone else wishing to testify on this matter? Okay.
I'm Don Weissman with the American Heart Association, and this has come up year after year after year, and nothing has really changed, and so we continue our opposition as well for some of the reasons that Lola from the Department of Health mentioned, that the science shows that these bills don't have the effect that we think it will have, and in fact, if you look at the tobacco industry documents, they are the ones who actually originated this idea years ago as a way of deflecting the attention away from the perpetrators of the problem to the victims. And so by pointing the blame on the kids for purchasing the products, when in fact the $25 million a year that they're spending in Hawaii on advertising and marketing is really the reason why the kids are attracted to those products in the first place. We need to do more, like the bills that were talked about earlier today, to restrict access to kids and focus on the ones who are trying to put these products in the kids' hands, not on the kids who are being drawn to the flame.
Surely we have enough blame to go around on this matter, no?
So in effect, we know that it doesn't have a positive effect that we want it to have from the science that we have, and in fact, it could play into the tobacco industry's marketing schemes.
Okay, thanks. All right, thank you. Officer?
I guess so. Good evening.
Hi.
I am Major Raymond Anchera from the Police Community Affairs Division, and we likewise are opposed to this bill, and we oppose it from a different way with respect to the position of the Department of Health. We oppose it from a slightly different angle. Our angle is that if the intent is to act as a deterrent, we feel that the existing penalties are not really substantial enough to serve as a deterrent. Right now, a first offense is a $10 violation, which is basically the cost of a pack of cigarettes. We feel that if the legislature wants to pursue a deterrent, then it should be a little bit serve more as a deterrent. Otherwise, the number of violations in the community right now would overwhelm the resources of the police department in order to book, arrest, and process these violators.
Not worth the $10, you're saying?
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you. Members, any questions?
Particularly since they don't get to keep the money anyway. So.
Yes. Okay, let's move to our final bill, Senate Bill 645, increasing liquor taxes. Director of Health?
A different director of health for that.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Chair Green, Vice Chair Baker, Senator Chen Oakland. I'm Linda Rosen, Chief of the Emergency Medical Services and Injury Prevention System Branch, providing the Department of Health's testimony. I'll be very brief. The Department of Health supports enactment of this measure, and of all the possible deterrents, or try to find a nexus between things like alcohol and injury. The nexus is so strong. Especially for motor vehicle crashes, almost half of all fatal crashes involve alcohol. And we looked at our trauma center data from our now 5 trauma centers, and 31% of patients who are admitted to trauma centers who are tested are positive for alcohol. And what's important about this measure is it really is evidence-based. There is a lot. The CDC studied 73 different independent studies, and it has absolutely been shown to reduce alcohol-related injuries, alcohol-related admissions, not just for injury, but for other conditions that are associated with alcohol use. This measure does put money in the Trauma Special Fund, which we appreciate and we try to use responsibly, but we would be strongly in support even if the funds did not come to the Trauma Fund. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Tim Lyons?
Mr. Bush is obviously opposed.
Obviously?
Oh.
That was a nice commercial, Tim. From the Super Bowl. I cried. Let's see, Robert Hirakawa.
Thank you, Senators. Robert Hirakawa with the Hawaii Primary Care Association. To be very brief, we support this measure, and we appreciate and support some of the funds being phased into the CHC Special Fund. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol McNamee, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. In support, Gary Slovin. Distilled Spirit Council of the United States of America in opposition. David Peters in support. Lauren Zerbel in opposition to the health centers. Is that right? Or the trauma fund.
As
Which
much
one
as
is
we love my dear friend, we're going to have to respectfully oppose this measure for all the reasons outlined in our testimony. Hawaii already has the second highest excise tax rate on beer in the country, with only Alaska coming higher. We're 260% higher than the national average on our beer tax. Distilled spirits are some of the highest, most heavily taxed products. Hawaii wine consumers already pay one of the highest prices in the United States for their wine. And for all these reasons, including there are so many jobs that are created by the liquor industry, and it's actually an industry that's growing. I went to the liquor convention on Maui, and there are so many small businesses coming up, and we'd really hate to see them lose out on being able to hire more people or expand or potentially go out of business because of an increase in tax. So
you mean like moonshiners, or who are these people?
Yes, limoncello. I mean, all kinds of crazy.
Where were you this morning when we had a bill to incent the craft beer industry?
Well, yeah.
Anheuser-Busch had them hostage.
Sorry.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Okay. Sean Garlip in opposition. Javier Mendez-Alvarez in support. Anyone else on this measure?
In opposition. As an individual.
Thank you.
In opposition.
Okay. Thank you. What's your name? I'm sorry.
Sarah.
Okay. I need your last name for the testimony.
Sarah Kim.
Okay. So we can submit testimony to you. Like, anyone else? Members, any questions? Okay, let's take a recess and then we'll wrap today.